Coming up today, Korea urges Japan to stop distorting history as some Japanese ruling party lawmakers push Tokyo to tackle the international community's misunderstanding over its wartime sexual enslavement of women. 7 countries lift their travel advisories for Korea after the Korean government announces the outbreak of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome has effectively come to an end. Plus, the IMF says countries like Korea should be doing more to boost domestic demand to right imbalances that are limiting global growth. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, July 29th here in Seoul. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning, Korea has once again reiterated its call on Japan to stop distorting the historical facts of its wartime sexual slavery. Seoul's foreign ministry says it's deeply concerned by reports out of Japan that some lawmakers from the ruling Liberal Democratic Party are attempting to deny the 1993 Kono statement in which Tokyo acknowledged Japan's sexual enslavement of women during World War II. Sources in Japan say a special committee from the party drafted a document which claims there were problems with the statement. The committee is close to submitting a proposal to the government that Japan should be more active to address the sex slavery issue that they claim is misunderstood. Seoul's ministry says the coercive nature of Japan's use of sex slaves is undeniable. It added that no one can change this historic truth or the international community's grave assessment of the issue. Now, overwhelming historical evidence shows tens of thousands of girls and women from Korea, China and other countries are forced into sexual servitude for Japanese troops before and during World War II. Meanwhile, efforts to restore the honor of the now elderly victims of Japan's sexual wartime enslavement is ongoing. 2 Korean victims have filed a lawsuit in a US court against the Japanese government and other wartime entities, seeking compensation for damages caused by the Japanese military's sexual enslavement of women before and during World War II. At a press conference in Washington on Tuesday, a lawyer representing the case said former sex slave Yoo Hee-nam and another victim are suing the Japanese government, as well as 7 Japanese companies, including Mitsui and Mitsubishi. They are seeking compensation worth $20 million for each plaintiff. They have also filed a defamation suit against the Tokyo-based Sankei Shimbun newspaper, which has called former sex slaves prostitutes in its articles. A group of young actors are set to bring the so-called comfort women issue to New York City in the form of a musical later this week. They hope the show will contribute in getting the message out about Japan's wartime atrocities. Hwang Sang-yi reports.
With all its glitz and glamour, Broadway has long been the place for creative dreamers hoping for a shot at stardom. Just a 20-minute drive north in Harlem, another group of young dreamers is hard at work, rehearsing for the musical Comfort Women. Through music and movement, they tell the tragic story of the hundreds of women who were victims of Japan's wartime program of sexual enslavement. The director is a Korean college student named Demo Kim, who created the musical to raise awareness about this lesser-known chapter in Korean history. But first, he had to ensure his 53 cast members knew the history too.
I didn't know about it before. I did research on it, and I was very, very devastated not knowing that this had happened.
Regardless of their nationality, the actors say getting the message out about the Comfort Women is their top priority.
As a Japanese and as a Japanese American, I think it's even more important to be involved so that people can see that, yeah, their sentiment across the board for people to recognize this event in history.
A recent meeting with a former sex slave in Washington, D.C. strengthened their sense of purpose.
I could just feel her energy, her strength, her perseverance, her heartache as well. And I'm definitely going to take all of that with me into this show and hope to do everything that she's fought for up till now.
The director made clear that his intention is not to point fingers at Japan, but to build momentum for reconciliation between the two countries.
What I'm trying to say to the audience is, these are what happened, and these are what our new generation have to confront. And then, if we compromise by ourselves, then we can move forward to the future.
The musical Comfort Women will open at New York's biggest off-Broadway theater, St. Clement's, for a 2-week run on July 31st. The team's next goal is to bring the show here to Broadway. 황상희, Arirang News, New York.
Now, with the MERS outbreak practically out of the picture here in Korea, the Foreign Ministry says 7 countries on Tuesday lifted their travel advisories for Korea. They are China, the Czech Republic, Russia, Taiwan, the UAE, Mongolia and Vietnam. Hong Kong is also expected to lift its travel warning against non-essential trips to Korea in the near future. The ministry is known to have persuaded the nations to cancel their travel advisories through diplomatic channels. It said Korea will share the lessons it learned in overcoming the MERS outbreak with hopes to contribute to the health and security of the international community. A special parliamentary committee tasked with handling the MERS outbreak has requested an inspection of Samsung Medical Center, one of the epicenters of the outbreak. The committee urged the government to scrutinize the steps the hospital took in treating MERS patients, as well as take stock of its own poor handling of the outbreak. The center in southern Seoul was the source of infection for 91 patients, about half of the total. The resolution is expected to pass the full assembly next month. With that, the MERS committee, composed of 18 lawmakers from both main rival parties, wrapped up its 48 days of parliamentary activity. Now, in financial news, the latest Chinese stock market rout had some effects on the Korean market on Tuesday, but the country's main bourse, the benchmark Kospi, still managed to end the session a tad higher from the previous day's close. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The after effects of China's stock market plunge on Monday has negatively impacted the Korean stock market, with Kospi's and Kosdaq's lows for Tuesday dropping to 2015 and 720 respectively. Experts say both composites were affected by the Shanghai Composite, which fell 8.5% on Monday, the largest drop in 8 years. China's stock market continued its free fall on Tuesday as investors shrugged off efforts by regulators to calm the markets. The Shanghai Composite closed down 1.7% after recovering from a 4% drop when the market opened. This slight recovery had a positive effect on Korea's benchmark Kospi, closing 0.29 points higher at 2,039. But China's recent economic downfall is affecting countries around the world, fanning investor fears.
China's weak stock market is starting to be viewed as Beijing's having a poor economic growth, and this in turn starting to have an impact on the Korean stock market.
The worries don't stop there, as foreign investors are also fearing a possible interest hike by the U.S. Federal Open Market Committee, diminishing the will to invest in emerging markets. In order to better deal with the current situation, Korea's Financial Services Commission said early on Tuesday that it will closely monitor the Chinese market and the possible effects it could have on the Korean economy. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The International Monetary Fund is urging countries with massive current account surpluses, such as China, Germany and Korea, to boost domestic demand to help correct imbalances that are limiting global growth. The IMF says there hasn't been much progress over the past several years in reducing such imbalances, which also contribute to financial instability. The Washington-based lender also says it's critical for China to adopt a flexible, market-based exchange rate and to open up its mostly ring-fenced financial system. The IMF also urged governments at the national level to institute structural reforms to boost productivity and employment. A new report shows Korea has the world's worst consumer confidence amid the ongoing economic downturn we're feeling here in the nation. On Tuesday, Nielsen Korea released the results of an online survey it conducted on 60 countries regarding their economic progress over the second quarter of this year. According to the report, Korea's Consumer Confidence Index, which was already among the lowest in the world since the fourth quarter of last year, took a hit from the recent MERS outbreak to reach 45, and that puts Korea at the very bottom of the list. The survey also showed that 86% of Koreans said the country is currently in an economic slump. Now, if you own an Android smartphone or tablet, you could be in danger of being hit with a malicious hacking attack. Experts say hackers can steal your personal information by simply sending you a text message. US-based IT firm Ziperium says that it has discovered a bug in Android's operating system that makes 95% of all Android devices vulnerable to a hacker taking control of the device and its contents without the user ever knowing. How it works is that a hacker texts a short video with malware hidden inside to the user that they want to hack, and in a worrying new twist, in fact, the smartphone user doesn't even have to open it for the bug to infiltrate your phone. The flaw is in a piece of software code installed in almost all Android devices. It's called stage fright. Once the device has been exploited, a hacker can gain access to the phone's data and other apps, including the camera and the microphone. Now, in the wake of Iran's nuclear deal, countries participating in multinational efforts to denuclearize North Korea were brimming with optimism, hoping to bring a similar resolution to the North Korean nuclear issue. But North Korea has crushed those hopes, referring to itself as a nuclear weapon state. Chae-sun reports.
At a press conference for foreign journalists, a North Korean ambassador to China, Ji Jae-ryong, made it clear his country will not return to multilateral negotiations on its nuclear weapons program.
We do not have any interest at all in dialogue on unilaterally freezing or giving up our nukes.
The so-called SixParty talks to curb the North's nuclear ambitions involving the two Koreas, the US, China, Japan, and Russia, have been stalled since early 2009. In the wake of the deal struck by the US and 5 world powers on curbing Iran's nuclear program, the SixParty nations have been seeking a similar agreement with the North. Pyongyang, however, sees things differently.
The situation of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is totally different from Iran. We are a nuclear state, both in name and reality.
The North Korean diplomat defended Pyongyang's nuclear deterrent as a means of protecting itself from Washington's hostile policies. He also criticized the U.S. and South Korea for their annual military drills, saying the exercises are part of Washington's plan to bolster its so-called pivot to Asia policy by maintaining tensions between the two Koreas. While an official in Seoul has suggested North Korea may be trying to mislead its longtime ally China about its nuclear intentions, South Korea's top nuclear negotiator, who visited China recently, warned the North of the consequences it would have to face if it doesn't change its current course. Stressing the international community will respond firmly to the North's provocations, the envoy said the regime is at a crossroads between completion of its nuclear arms development and denuclearization through dialogue. Chae-sun, Arirang News.
Korea marks the 70th anniversary of the nation's independence this year. To mark the occasion, the country is celebrating its various achievements. The scientific and technological advances are under the spotlight at an expo that kicked off on Tuesday. Song Ji-sun reports.
After Korea declared its independence in 1945, it didn't seem likely that it would be able to get back on its feet even after 100 years. But now, 70 years later, Korea produces some of the world's top mobile phones, semiconductors, and even nuclear reactors, thanks to its rapid economic and technological development. And the government has pledged to keep on supporting science and technology to fulfill the president's vision for a creative Korea.
Our economic achievements were made possible through technology. Technologies are advancing at a much faster rate now, and the success of our creative economy drive is only possible through research and development and investing in science.
The Prime Minister made his remarks at an event that kicked off on Tuesday to showcase 70 landmark technologies that highlight Korea's scientific history. From the technologies that have evolved over the past 7 decades to future tech projected for the next 30 years, you can get a glimpse of the past, present, and future. This is Korea's first automobile, the Pony, made back in the 70s. Today, Korea is the 5th largest automaker in the world. And this is Hubo, the first humanoid robot built by Korean scientists in 2004. At the expo, aspiring scientists can try to control the $500,000 droid.
It's incredible to actually see a robot. I've always wanted to be a robotics engineer, and this experience makes me want to pursue that dream even more.
From drones that seem familiar to opportunities to experience virtual reality or assemble a robot, there is much more to see and be inspired by at this event, which runs through Sunday. 송지선, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching, and we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.